All right, so I'm going to change my view. Hi everybody, this is Tanya from Nana's Crafty Home, and I'm here with Annie's for our monthly block party. And if you can see my video, you see it, Marla? Awesome, that's great. I'm using some new software today, so I just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page, so to speak. So today's live, we're going to be working through our next block, our next square, and it is this adorable little cat granny square called the Cat's Meow square. So this is just a regular granny square block, and then we are adding this cat applique to the top, which then makes it more dimensional. You can feel the kitty on here. And I'm going to be showing you how to make this traditional granny square out of 3 different colors. And then I'm going to work through the kitty and sew him onto the square. And I'm going to show you how to sew that on so that you can't see it on the back side to make that as invisible as possible. So let's take a look here. Make sure that we are... You can see it. Hi, Annie's is here. You can only see a tiny bit. So are we having some technical problems, anyone? Well, it seems fine for me. I can see it on here, so I'm hoping that you guys can see it as well. And we're going to go ahead and get started. I wanted to show you that I am going to be using 3 different colors of Paintbox Cotton Aran yarn, and I'm not going to be using black for my kitten because black is really hard to show on camera for a tutorial, so I'm going to be using white for my kitten. So he should be a lot better to see the stitches with that color rather than the black. But of course you can make yours in any color that you want. What a fabulous blanket this would make. If you made a cat blanket with a lot of different color cats on it, I think it would be perfect for any cat lover. You're also going to need a crochet hook. I am using a size H or a 5.0 millimeter crochet hook that matches the size weight of my yarn. You can use any size weight that you would like, but this does correspond with the weight that I'm using. I also have a stitch marker. I do use this at one point in the pattern, and I'll show you where. That's on the cat. So let's see. Christy can see me. Marla can see the whole screen. Seeing 3/4. Okay. Well, let's get started here. I'm going to change my camera view. And I'm going to start out with my gray, my first color. And I already have my yarn on my hook. And let me know if you're not able to see my hands. So we're going to start out with color A, and I'm going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I'm going to slip stitch join to form a ring to that first chain that I made. And that makes this little ring. Now I'm going to chain 3, and that chain 3 is going to count as a double crochet on this and every round, and then I'm going to work 2 double crochets into that ring. So that space that you made in the center is where you're going to be inserting your hook and working 2 double crochets, chain 2. Now 3 double crochets in that ring and chain 2 3 more times. So there's 1, 2 double crochets, 3 double crochets, chain 2. I'm going to repeat that twice more. There's 1, 2, and 3. Chain 2. And one more time, 3 double crochets and a chain 2 in the center of that ring. So there's 1, 2, and 3, chain 2. To complete round 1, I'm going to slip stitch join in the 3rd top chain of that beginning chain 3. To complete round 1. For round 2, you're going to slip stitch at the top of those next 2 stitches here. So slip stitch in that next one, slip stitch in the next, and then slip stitch into that chain 2 space. So inserting your hook into that chain 2 space, working a slip stitch. Now I'm going to work my beginning corner, and my beginning corner is a chain 3, 1, 2, and 3, and then 2 double crochets, 1, 2, chain 2, and 3 double crochets, all worked in that same chain space. And this is going to be my beginning corner. That's what my beginning corner is going to look like for every round of my granny square. So I'll repeat that same sequence at the beginning of each round. Then after I've worked my beginning corner, I'm going to chain 1, and I'm in the next chain 2 space, I'm going to work 3 double crochets, a chain 2, and 3 double crochets to make a corner. So in that chain 2 space, 3 double crochets, 1, 2, and 3, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. Then after I've worked that corner, I'm going to chain 1, and I'm going to repeat that all the way around. So in each of these chain spaces, I'm going to be working a corner here and a corner here, and chaining 1 in between. So 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, chain 2, 3 double crochets, 1, 2, and 3, chain 1, and then work a corner in the next one, 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, chain 2, 3 double crochets, all worked in that same space, 1, 2, and 3, chain 1, and I'm back at the beginning, so I'm finishing up round 2, and I'm going to finish in the same way. Slip stitch at the top of that chain 3, and round 2 is complete. So for round 3, I'm going to slip stitch again at the top of these next 2 stitches, and slip stitch into that chain 2 space and work a beginning corner, chaining 3, 2 double crochets, 1, 2, and then chain 2, 1, 2, and 3 double crochets, all worked in that same chain space. So I've made my beginning corner. I'm going to chain 1, and now I'm going to work 3 double crochets in this chain 1 space here. So this chain space, I'm going to work 3 double crochets in that space, 1, 2, and 3, and chain 1, and work a corner, and that corner is going to be 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, all worked in that same space. So we're just going to be repeating that on around. 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to be repeating that around, so in all of my corners, working that same stitch sequence, 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets in each corner, and in between, chaining 1, 3 double crochets in the chain 1 space. So 1, 2, and 3. There's something so relaxing about the traditional granny square. Brings me back to my childhood when I first learned to crochet. So many years ago. So then I'm going to chain 2 and 3 double crochets in that same corner space. Three double crochets in that chain 1, repeating that on around. Now, have you guys been making any of these squares each month? I know that I've had some photos that have shown up on my Facebook of people that have made the blocks and shown pictures off. That's a great way. I love to see that you're actually making these squares. We love to see pictures. You know, I think, I'm not 100% sure about this, so maybe Annie's, you can answer this, but are people allowed to take photos and leave them on the event later if they make them after and show photos? Can they do that in the event? I have that on my Facebook page, but I don't know if everyone is the same. So there's chain 1. We're at the end of our round. Slip stitch at the top of that chain 3. We all love to see your work. So if you share on Instagram, tag us. I would love to see it. I'm sure Annie's would love to see it. And then we're going to slip stitch in the top of those next 2 stitches, slip stitch into that chain 2 space. So we are ready for, this is round 4. And this is my last round of this color. I'll be switching to the green color after round 4. So beginning corner again, chaining 3, 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets for that beginning corner. And I have not been checking the comments. So let's see here. Oh, good. Yes, love to see the pics. The video is skipping. Oh, goodness, Olympia. I'm sorry about that. Hi, Lisa. Good picture and sound. Well, it looks like some people aren't having any problems. Some people are. So, hopefully that gets resolved as we work through the square. So I've worked my beginning corner. I'm going to chain 1, and now I'm going to work 3 double crochets in that next chain 1 space, just as I did in the previous round. And that is how you grow a traditional granny square. You would just continue repeating this same stitch sequence, chaining 1, 3 double crochets in that next chain 1 space, and then chaining 1, and then in the corners 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochets in those chain 2 corner spaces. So yes, you could make a blanket. If you've never made a traditional granny square before, you just keep going and going to your heart's content until you've reached the size desired for your blanket or square or whatever you'd like to make. Chain 1, 3 double crochets in that next chain 1 space. And I think that's what's just so soothing about this type of pattern, is that You can make something beautiful with different color yarns. You can stripe it out. You can use self-striping yarn and just go until you're done. You don't have to worry about following a pattern once you get it down. You can just sit on the couch and crochet. Working my corner, chaining 1 after that corner, 3 double crochets in that chain 1 space, chaining 1, 3 double crochets again in that next chain 1 space, chaining 1, 3 double crochets, chain 2 and 3 double crochets, chaining 1, chain 1, 3 double crochets in that last chain 1 space. That gets us to the end of round 4. And as I talked about before, we're going to change colors. So I'm going to change colors with my slip stitch join at the top of that chain 3. I'm going to pull in my color green. Whoops, I got a little out of my control there. And then slip stitch into the top of those next 2 stitches. I'm going to go ahead and fasten off here my gray, get that out of my way. And then slip stitch into that corner, and then work my beginning corner again. So I'm going to be doing 1 round in the green. So chaining 3, 2 double crochets, chaining 2, and then 3 double crochets, chaining 1, 3 double crochets in that next chain 1 space, just basically repeating that previous round, 3 double crochets in that next chain 1 space, and I'm using cotton yarn, as I talked about at the beginning, but you can use any kind of yarn that you would like, acrylic, wool, whatever floats your boat. You can change it up to whatever scraps you have on hand. It's another great thing about these types of projects is you can use up scraps that you have lying around. And I'm working those 3 double crochets in chain 1 in each of these chain 1 spaces. Whoops, going off the rails here. Then working another corner. Chaining 1, and then 3 double crochets, chain 1 in each of these chain 1 spaces. work another corner here. Is anyone planning on making a blanket of this square? Just making a kitty blanket in different colors or maybe one color? Of course, that black cat, he's perfect for October, right? I have a granddaughter that absolutely adores cats, all cats, any kind of cats. She would adopt every cat in the world if we would let her. She feeds stray cats, the neighbor cats. And not to say I'm not a cat lover myself. I actually have a cat as well. We've had cats as pets for a long time. But she's kind of cat obsessed, so this would be perfect for her. She would love this. And so I'm working that last 3 double crochet, chain 1 at the end of that round, and then I'm going to be changing to color C. So that color C is going to be the same color as my cat, so I'm using the white, and I'm going to switch to that color with a slip stitch, join. If I can get it here, find my end. Actually, this time, sorry about that, we're going to go ahead and slip stitch join and then fasten off that green. And I just split my yarn. There we go. So I'm just going to fasten off. And now I'm going to go ahead and join color C in any corner chain 2 space. So in this next chain 2 corner, I'm going to go ahead and slip stitch to join my color C, chain 1, and I'm going to work 3 single crochets in that same space. So that is going to be my single crochet corner, and I'm going to do that in every one of these corners. And then I'm going to start working single crochets all the way around the outside edge. So this is just going to tighten and finish off my square. So I'm going to work a single crochet in these next 3 stitches. I'm going to work a single crochet in that chain 1 space and then a single crochet at the top of each of these stitches. And I'm just going to repeat that on around. So working in the top of each stitch, a single crochet in each chain 1 space until I get to the corner. Let's see if we have any questions about what we have done so far before I move on to anything else in this square. Single crochet in that chain 1 space. Oh, Lisa, I'm so glad that you enjoy my videos. You love the cotton candy square, Christy? Looks like we're doing okay. So I don't see any other questions. So we're going to just move on. Working a single crochet, and that yarn wants to split right there, doesn't it? There we go. Single crochet at the top of each of those stitches, and I'm at a corner, so now I'm going to work that 3 single crochet corner in that same space, and then again a single crochet at the top of each of these stitches, a single crochet in each chain 1 space. So easy. This is a great way to finish off your square before you join it with other squares. Tightens it up. This one, you know, I've talked about blocking before, you know, to finish off your square, and that it really helps to open up your stitches and get a really nice finished square. This one isn't going to benefit quite as much from a wet blocking. I did go ahead and wet block mine just to get the perfect square before I took photos, finished photos, but I don't think it's quite as necessary with this block to wet block it. But again, that's completely up to you. I like doing that for squares that I'm going to be sewing together because it's a lot easier to line up my stitches. But obviously completely optional. So I'm just moving along with a single crochet in every stitch, single crochet in this chain one, and this yarn does not want to pull out. There we go. Those new skeins of yarn, they sometimes just don't want to let go of their yarn easily, you know? Hanging on to it. Working through, single crochet in every stitch, 3 single crochet corner, and working those 3 single crochets in that corner helps you turn that corner so that your square doesn't bunch, doesn't curl up. Keeps it nice and flat. All right, single crochet every stitch, chain 1 there, single crochet in every stitch. And I'm getting to the end of this round. Single crochet the top of these stitches. Single crochet in that chain 1 space. Single crochet in the top of these 3 stitches. So one is that chain 3 from the beginning of that round, previous round. And I'm going to slip stitch join to that first single crochet. And I am ready to fasten off, and my square is complete. So you're ready now to weave in your ends. That's your perfect granny square block. So now we're ready to move on to make our kitty cat. And I'm again going to be using that white yarn. And it's all knotted up here. Get my yarn on my hook. And I'm going to chain 23. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23. Now it helps if I tell you I'm actually making the cat in 2 different parts. So right now I'm starting on his body, and his head will be a separate piece, and then I'll sew those 2 pieces together and then sew it on to my granny square. So after chaining 23, I'm going to slip stitch in the 3rd chain from the hook and in the next 3 chains. So 1, 2, and 3. So slip stitch into that 3rd chain from the hook and in the next 3 chains. So 1, 2, and 3. Now I'm going to single crochet in the next 6 chains. So 1, 2, 3, and 6, and then half double crochet in the next chain. I've just made the cat tail. So this part is the cat's tail, and then I use the stitch marker and place it here. And the reason being is because I'm going to be working in the next 10 chains a single crochet, and when I turn, I'm just going to be working in the next 10 stitches for several rows, and it just helps if I put that stitch marker there. I don't have to worry about counting so much. So I'm going to be working a single crochet in the remaining chains. And that's the first row of the cat's body. And I'm going to turn, chain 1, and single crochet in the next 10 stitches. So basically I'm going to be working a single crochet in every stitch until I get to that stitch marker, and then I'm going to turn. I'm not going to work in any of the rest of the stitches for this row because that is the cat's tail, and we're leaving that as it is. So I'm going to make sure I have 10 stitches here, and 10. So I'm going to turn, and for rows 3 through 10, I'm going to repeat row 2. So chaining 1, single crochet in each stitch. Did anyone have any questions about how that worked with us not working in those last stitches? Did that make sense to everyone? This row will show you a little bit more as I'm working on the body. That tail has been left on its own. So turning, chaining 1, single crochet in every stitch. Let's take a look. Oh, someone made a cat ahead of time. That's great. I don't see any questions, so we're just going to keep moving on. So I've worked 1, 2, 3, 4 rows of that single crochet. We're working that same thing through row 10, so I have several rows left to go. I think appliques are such a great way to add a fun little neat thing to a project. And I bet Annie's has a lot of applique patterns that you could make and then use that same technique for adding appliques to a granny square. So if you wanted to make a blanket and you had a pumpkin applique or a jack-o'-lantern, you wanted to turn that into a jack-o'-lantern, you could make a whole blanket, maybe a little black house, like for a haunted house. You could make all kinds of little appliques to add to a granny square, and you could make a really cute blanket. Or if you like dogs and cats, because we're a dog and cat household here, you could make a dog and cat granny square. Make one cat, make one dog, You could make different colors, so you could have a whole blanket. And just use that same, you know, what we're doing here, making an applique, making up a bunch of simple granny squares, and then sewing those appliques to the top of your squares to create all different kinds of combinations and looks. Be so much fun. Especially since those granny squares are such a great mindless little project. Once you know the pattern, you can just whip those out like crazy, different colors, use your scraps. Let's see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, a couple more rows. It actually sounds so fun. I just thought of it now, like a candy corn. Golly. What other ideas do you guys have for appliques that you could use for like an October blanket? Oh, fall leaves. You could do leaves in different colors. You could do a Thanksgiving one with a turkey. Oh my goodness. So many awesome things that you could do. And then of course, Christmas. Get me started on Christmas, and holy cow, you could make blankets for days with all the different appliques that you could use. Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, did I make too many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh my goodness, I did. I'm sorry about that, guys. Got to talking. I do that a lot. Okay, so we're on row 11, and now we're going to start decreasing. So we're going to turn and chain 1, and we're going to single crochet in that first single crochet, and then decrease over the next 2 single crochets. So to make a single crochet decrease, you insert your hook, yarn over and pull up a loop in that first stitch, and then insert your hook into that next stitch and yarn over and pull up a loop. You'll have 3 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on your hook, and you've made a decrease. Single crochet in the next 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Decrease just as we just did, inserting our hook into that next stitch, yarning over, pulling up a loop, inserting our hook into the next stitch, yarning over, pulling up a loop, yarning over, pulling through all 3, single crochet in that next stitch. So we had 10 stitches before that row, and I made 2 decreases. So now you would have 8 single crochet stitches. Chain 1 and turn. For row 12, single crochet in the next stitch, that same stitch, decrease again in the same method, single crochet in the next 2, 1, 2, decrease over the next 2, just as I have before, and then single crochet in the next stitch. And you would have 6 stitches for that row. Chain 1 and turn. And for row 13, we're just going to single crochet in each. I don't think I chained 1. Did I? Nope. Yes, I did. Single crochet in each stitch. And we're going to fasten off for the body. And the body of the kitty will be all completed. And I'm going to leave a little bit of a longer tail because I like to sew the body and the head together before I sew it to my granny square. So that body is complete. You can see I can remove that stitch marker now. So the body of the kitty, I've got my tail, he's ready to go. And now we're ready for the head. See if we have any questions. The cat would look cute with fuzzy yarn. Oh my goodness, wouldn't it ever? All right, so with our same color, because now we're making the kitty's head, I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. And I'm going to work 10 single crochets in that second chain from the hook, and then join in the first single crochet. So in this second chain, I'm going to work 10 single crochets. I'm going to mark that first one so I don't lose track of it. So there's 1. This is a little bit awkward. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. All right. So for round 2, I'm going to join to that first stitch here. I'm going to get rid of that stitch marker, I think, first though. Slip stitch, join, chain 1, and work 2 single crochets in that same stitch and in each stitch around. So 2 single crochets in that same stitch. There's 1 and 2. You can use your stitch marker if you don't want to lose track of that first stitch, and then 2 single crochets in each of the remaining. So I'm just making a circle at this point. So at the end of this round, you're going to have a total of 20 single crochet stitches. Make sure I didn't miss any. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. And then join in that first single crochet. Chain 1, 2 single crochets in that same stitch, and then in oh goodness, I think I messed up. Round 3, we're supposed to single crochet in the same single crochet and in each of the remaining chains. Sorry about that. So not 2. Started reading the same round all over again. Okay, so 1 single crochet in each of these stitches around. And then we're going to be, for round 4, making his cute little ears. And then join in that first single crochet of the round. And we're ready to move on to round 4 with a chain 1. And in that same single crochet, so in that same stitch, I'm going to work a single crochet, chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and work a single crochet in that same stitch. My first ear is made. Now I'm going to single crochet in the next 4. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And in the next single crochet, I'm going to be working a single crochet, chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and a single crochet in that same stitch. Single crochet in the next 14. So basically we're working a single crochet in all of the remaining stitches until we get back to the beginning of this round. And we will have finished his head. And then join in that first single crochet. And fasten off. I like to leave a nice long tail because we're going to be sewing that cat to our granny square. So I am going to leave a nice long tail. So there is his head with his 2 ears. Isn't he cute? Now we're going to be finishing with some embroidery work. So for his eyes, we're going to use the green, and for his whiskers, we're going to be using the gray. So I get a length of yarn on my tapestry needle, and I'm using one that I can fit my yarn through easily, and it has a blunt end and curved. I like these curved ones for when I'm sewing 2 things. Really helps me a lot. Okay. Pull that through. So for our gray, we're going to be making his whiskers. Now, don't laugh, embroidery is not one of my best skills. And typically when I'm working embroidery, the first time is generally not good enough for me. But we're going to make an attempt, and I'm going to be working my whiskers from the bottom and pulling up my needle with my yarn on my hook or my needle. And I'm going to leave a little bit of a length on the end so that I can weave that end in later and make that secure. And then I try to use the holes between the single crochet stitches so I'm not splitting my yarn, and pushing my needle through those holes, those gaps, to create that first whisker. And you can make these as big, long as you'd like. The biggest thing is not going through your other yarn that you have hanging off here. Hold on to your end so you don't pull it through. And you can see I'm making that middle whisker just slightly longer than that end one, coming up next to it. And then making that just slightly shorter to make that third little whisker. And then you would just repeat that on the other side to make the whiskers for the other side of his head. And what I would generally do is to get to the other side. So now I can repeat that and try to get those even. See, they like to come through together. And I don't think these exactly match, but let's take a look. They don't. My middle one's not quite as long, but you get the gist of it. That's basically how you would work those whiskers. And then of course you can always, if you're not quite happy with them, they're easy to pull out if you want to make some adjustments. I'm just going to say that mine's a little, his whiskers are just a little bit different on both sides. So now we're ready to add his eyes. And I'm using the green for that. Just getting that length of green yarn on. And I'm making 2 little embroidery stitches for each eye. So just decide where you want his eyes. So you can see my black cat here. I was able to spend a little bit more time with him to get him to look as good as possible. But I'm just going to come up here. Again, leaving a little bit of a length on the back. And then trying to get his eyes on both sides to match up. 2 little stitches there for one eye. And then coming over on this side and repeating that. And you can see I'm gonna leave that there. All right, so we have his eye. I'm going to cut all this stuff on the back side. Of course, you would want to weave these in to secure them, but I'm just going to cut them for now, just to get them a little bit out of my way. Because now I'm going to show you how to attach your body and the head together. I'm using that longer length of yarn to sew these 2 pieces together to create my hat, or my cat. There we go. I'm going to do that from the back side here. And I'm going to be using the loops from that top row of the body with the loops from the bottom of his head. So I'm just going to be inserting my needle through both sides using that long length of yarn, and adjust that so I can see better. I'm having a hard time seeing it. All right. And basically just using the mattress stitch to come through and grab the top loops on both sides and sewing those two pieces together. So now the two pieces are together and I can sew him to my square. So I'm going to take my square and make adjustments to where I want him on my square. I'm going to take that long length of yarn that I left from the head to sew him to the top of my granny square. Now, if you didn't leave a long length, you can always attach a length of yarn to your needle and use that. Just make sure that you leave a nice long length to weave in at the end to secure. So I'm going to put him on there the way I want him, make adjustments, and then I'm going to start sewing him to the top of my square. And you're going to use the same technique throughout the entire, you're going to follow along the outside edges of your cat, sewing him to the top of your square. And you would use the same technique for any applique. So I have my length, it's attached to my cat, and I'm just going to go down and I'm going to grab some yarn from the top of my granny square. I'm not going to go all the way through to the back side. So you can see here I've inserted my needle. I have some yarn from that granny square on my needle, but you can't see that needle on the back side of my work. And that allows that to be invisible on the back side. So it gives that nice, clean, professional look. Now, you can sew those ears down if you would like. I like to leave them floppy. So I'm just going to come down here to this, hiding my yarn. Grabbing yarn from the granny square. That's why this type of needle does work really well to do that, is it kind of helps. And then I just come up through my cat. I'm securing him while still having an invisible join. Going down, making sure that you're picking up. These would already be woven in, so you wouldn't have those in your way typically, but I didn't want to spend the time to weave in my ends for the video. I've grabbed some yarn underneath the cat. I'm not coming way out here to grab yarn. It's underneath the applique itself, so that way you don't see it, and then coming back up into the cat. So he's secure. You can see that he's secured quite well, and yet you can't see those stitches on the back side of my granny square. And you would just complete your sewing throughout the remaining part of your cat until he's completely sewn to the top of your granny square. So I hope that that was helpful. All right. Hi guys, it's me again.